We've all been there, right? Steering down some colossal mess, a project that's gone completely off the rails, or a process that's just broken. And the big question is always, what do you do next?
The natural impulse is to panic, to jump straight to a solution, any solution. We just want to fix it, and we want to fix it now. But that, right there, is often the first and biggest mistake. The people who really solve problems for good, they don't scramble. They act more like detectives.
And this is the absolute core of it. The reason most attempts to fix things fail is because people rush the investigation. I mean, jumping to a fix before you even understand the problem, it's as crazy as a surgeon deciding to operate before even looking at the diagnostic report. You might end up fixing a problem, sure, but it's probably not the right one. And that's just a huge waste of time, money, and everyone's morale.
And that brings us to our framework for today, DMAIC. It's an acronym that stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. And as our source material points out, it's basically a roadmap that looks a lot like good old-fashioned detective work. It gives you a system, a way to dismantle any problem piece by piece, so you're not just patching up the symptoms, you're actually curing the disease.
Okay, so every investigation starts at the beginning. Phase 1, Define, is all about understanding the crime scene. This is where you have to fight that urge to jump to conclusions, and instead, you just start gathering the basic facts of the case.
I just love this quote from the pioneering engineer Dorian Shannon. It's such a great reminder to get out from behind your desk. You can't solve a problem just based on theories and spreadsheets. You have to go out and understand how the process actually works in the real world, talking to the people and looking at the parts involved.
In the language of Six Sigma, every problem is basically y equals a function of x. Now, that might sound a little technical, but think of it this way. If your y is late pizza deliveries, well, the x's are all the things that could be causing it. Traffic, the oven not being hot enough, mistakes when taking the order. Now, in the define phase, you're not trying to guess the x's yet. Nope. Your only job is to get crystal clear on that problem, the why. Just how late are the pizzas and how often is it happening?
So the main goal here is to build a rock-solid case file. You need to write a really precise problem statement, set clear goals for what fixed actually looks like, and, this is so important, understand what the customer really wants. And that could be an internal or an external customer. It's not about what you think is wrong, it's about what the process is failing to deliver for them.
All right, with the case file open, it's time to put on your detective hat and start the real investigation. The next two phases, measure and analyze, are all about gathering the evidence and then making sense of it.
This is where we separate hunches from reality. The measure phase is all about collecting data to figure out what your starting point is. How bad is the problem really? How often does it pop up? You see, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. But with data, you have facts.
Now, this is a fantastic illustration of a super important part of measuring things, what's called an operational definition. To measure something accurately, everyone has to be on the same page about what you're actually measuring. The source material gives this brilliant example from a car rental agency. So, what counts as a dent? For them, it's only a dent if it's bigger than a quarter. A scratch has to be longer than a dollar bill. It's a clear, simple rule that just gets rid of all the arguments and ambiguity.
Once you have data you can actually trust, you can finally move into the analyze phase. This is the fun part. It's where you get to sift through all the clues, look for patterns, test your theories, and really zero in on the root cause, the real source of the problem, not just the symptoms it's creating. A simple, but I mean incredibly powerful tool for this is called the 5 whys. It's basically a detective's interrogation technique. You just state the problem, and then you keep asking why, like a persistent little kid. And what you find is by the time you get to the 4th or 5th why, you've usually blown past all the surface-level excuses and found the real culprit hiding underneath. And here's a pro tip that's shown so well in this project timeline. Notice how the measure and analyze phases aren't these two neat, separate boxes? They overlap, they bleed into each other. As you measure something, you start to analyze it, and that analysis might point you to new things you need to go out and measure. It's this back and forth cycle of discovery, just like in a real investigation.
Okay, so you've defined the problem, you've gathered the evidence, and you've identified the root cause. Now, and only now, are you finally ready to talk about solutions. This is where we get into the final 2 phases, improve and control.
The improve phase isn't about just throwing random ideas at a wall to see what sticks. No. Based on that rigorous analysis you just did, you brainstorm potential solutions that directly target the root cause you found. Then you evaluate them systematically.
You use a tool just like this one, a solution selection matrix, to take all the guesswork out of the decision. You list your potential fixes, and then you score them against important criteria, like how effective will it be? Is it actually feasible? What's the cost? This simple grid can turn a subjective debate into an objective choice, and it makes sure you pick the best solution, not just the easiest one or the one from the loudest person in the room.
Now listen up, because this might be the most important and honestly the most often skipped phase of the entire process. You've implemented a great solution. Fantastic. But how do you make sure the team doesn't just slowly slide back into its old, broken habits 6 months from now? Well, that is the job of the control phase.
The control phase closes the loop. It prevents a relapse. This is where you establish new protocols, create monitoring systems like dashboards or checklists, and you document the new process to lock in your improvements for good. See, you're not just solving a problem, you're raising the whole standard of performance and making the new way the easy way. So, we've walked through the entire investigation, all the way from the crime scene to locking the culprit away for good. Let's pull it all together into your go-to formula for pretty much any challenge.
Just remember DMAIC as the detective's roadmap. Define the case with absolute clarity, measure the evidence with hard data, analyze the clues to find that root cause, implement the right solution, and finally, control the scene so the problem can't come back. It's a universal logic that you can apply to almost any mess you'll ever face.
And just one final point to be super clear. This whole process, DMAIC, is for fixing something that already exists but is broken. If you were designing something totally new from a blank slate, you'd use a similar but different framework. But for our purposes today, just remember, DMAIC is your go-to tool for improving what's already there.
So there you have it, a powerful, structured formula for solving even the most complex problems. But it all hinges on good data, right? On trustworthy clues. So what happens when your data is lying to you? What if the real culprit is actually hiding in the variation of your measurements? Well, that's a case for another time.